wonderful being here, and I'm told that there's some ceremonial that's going to take place at the very beginning.
Yes, not only are these, thousands of fans excited for your presence, the city of Honolulu is also would like to welcome you.
And I'm excited to be invited.
We have a representative from the mayor's office, and he would like to do the proclamation.
Good afternoon and aloha! On behalf of Mayor Kurt Caldwell and the City and County of Honolulu, I am honored to stand here today to deliver this proclamation to the legendary George Takei. He has shaped all of our childhoods through his role as Hikaru Sulu on the Starship Enterprise, and he continues to shape our adulthood with his role as a community activist in the LGBTQ community. I'm honored to be here today. I hope that you continue to boldly take us where some of us may not want to go, but where we all need to go. Mr. Takei, if it's all right, I'd like to read just the last sentence here of the proclamation. In recognition of his influence in popular culture and his important contributions in civil and LGBT rights, therefore, Kurt Caldwell, the mayor of the City and County of Honolulu, does hereby proclaim today, July 30th, 2016, to be George Takei Day. And all of the organizers for putting on this incredible event. And without much further ado, ladies and gentlemen, George Takei.
Thank you very much for this, and I must say this is an oh my day. I came here not expecting anything like this, so I'm really overwhelmed and taken by surprise. What did I do to deserve this? I just did what I felt I was given the opportunity to do. And this is where Star Trek comes into play. Because the gift I got from Star Trek was the amplification of my voice. And I've always felt that that gift comes with responsibility as well. And because I have this opportunity to have access to microphones, cameras, stages, that I have a responsibility to do what I can to contribute to making this a better world. And so I did just what comes naturally. And thank you very much to the mayor's office and to all those that played a part in my receiving this proclamation. I'm very, very flattered and honored. And Honolulu will now have more than a special place in my heart. I've always loved coming to Hawaii and roaming all over from island to island, but now Honolulu has become a singular place for me to home.
For all of our guests to come to Comic-Con Honolulu, and something that is a true part of local culture. We would like to present you a spam suite.
It's still warm. My cup really got. In fact, I mean, this is a cheap joke, but from the time I came, I found that this is a place for good ladies. And lays and lays and lays. I know that was crass. And now there's spam musubi as well. I'm not going to eat this in front of you. Where can I put this? Right back. Oh, with my honor.
All right, thank you again. And everyone enjoy the panel.
And a wonderful, flattering honor to boot. So thank you very much for all that. But I also want to thank you all for this incredible gift that we have this year of the 50th anniversary of Star Trek. And this too is because of all of you. Because, you know, we just got cast and we worked on the show. Yes, it's true, Gene Roddenberry was the visionary and a very good producer that created the show. Yes, let's just give Gene. But this incredible gift of longevity, 50 years, isn't because of us. Even Gene, it's because of you, the fans. You are the ones that created 50 years of Star Trek fandom for us. So thank you very much for that. You all deserve an applause. Because just looking around, there are fewer and fewer original fans. I can usually, oh, there you are. And it seems the Hawaiian original fans all still have their hair. I generally can pick them up from the audience like this by looking for the shining pinks. But I don't see any here. But you're the ones that originally found us. And you are the ones that have the faith and determination and the lunacy, the fanaticism to keep on demanding the Star Trek stay on the air. At the beginning of each episode, we announced that we were boldly going on a 5-year mission. But after 2 years, our ratings were very low. In fact, the lowest rating we ever got was the episode in which Captain Kirk, a white man, kissed Uhura, a black woman. It's a wonderful episode, but that was the lowest rated show. And the reason for that is, and the reason why Gene was so pioneering, all of the stations in the American South, in Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama, and Georgia, refused to air that episode. They literally blacked it out. And because of that, our ratings went way down, rock bottom. And that just underscores the importance of what Gene Roddenberry was doing. He was pushing the envelope, trying to get people to have a better, wider, a broader horizon to seeing what our society is like. And that's why he was so great. But because it was rated so low, that it brought all the averages of our ratings down. And after the second season, we were in danger of being canceled completely. But this is where you guys came into play. And one woman spearheaded that effort, B. Jo Trimble. She began this campaign, a fan letter writing campaign directed at NBC and Paramount to renew Star Trek for a 3rd season. It was so overwhelming that they decided, despite the low ratings, and ordinarily the show would have been canceled, but despite that, we're going to renew it. And you gave us a 3rd season. But that wasn't good enough. And despite the fact that we announced that we were on a 5-year mission, and in every episode we had adversaries, like Klingons, Romulans, Andorians, but the most dangerous adversary, the most destructive adversary, wasn't any of them. They were the NBC programming executives. They canceled us after the 3rd season. So, all of us, you know, it was painful because we put a lot of ourselves into the show. But we were proud of what we did. We had 3 seasons that were wonderful seasons. Rip snorting good space opera. Good storytelling. But what Gene Roddenberry did was he took science fiction and used it as a metaphor for issues of the time. Whether it be the Civil Rights Movement, or the Vietnam War, or the Cold War. And those of you that really were perceptive were able to see beyond the surface sci-fi, the storytelling. You were able to see, this show is about the Cold War, or this show is about the Civil Rights Movement, or this show is about the Vietnam War. And that's what made those 3 seasons so rich. And we all were disappointed, but we were all proud of what we did for those 3 seasons. Because in show business, that happens all the time. Feature motion pictures crack, Broadway shows are closed, and TV series are canceled. And so we thought we'd go and build the rest of our careers. And the series, the 3 seasons, went into syndication. But what the syndicators did was they took Star Trek, and rather than showing it one night a week, they decided to air it 5 nights a week. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. And that's when we found our audience. And the ratings soared. And that's when Paramount started saying, well, we have something here. And they started considering reviving Star Trek as a TV series again. But in 1977, another phenomenon happened. 20th Century Fox released Star Wars. And that exploded at the box office. And what that did was it raised the ugly green head of greed at Paramount. They said, 20th is getting all this box office with this so-called sci-fi series. We have one right on our lot. Star Trek. We're talking about reviving it as a TV series. We want to get some of that big money as a feature film. And that's when they made the decision to make Star Trek as a major feature film. And 10 years after we were canceled in 1969, but 10 years after that, we came back as Star Trek, the motion picture. And again, this applause belongs to you because you all went to see the picture. And it was a little on the slow side. It was a little kind of lacking in pace. But you loved Star Trek. And you went, after you saw it, you went back to see it again, to see how slow it really was. But nevertheless, you said, yeah, well, it is slow. And then you went back a 3rd time, and a 4th time, and a 5th time. And you kept going back and back to see it again. And the box office grew and grew and grew until it became a box office success. And so Paramount decided, all right, we'll do another one. But usually sequels don't do as well as the first one. So this is going to be the last Star Trek. And they made The Wrath of Khan. There's a lot of Wrath of Khan fans here. And that was released. And you, again, faithfully, loyally, determinedly, you went and saw it. And you said, this is better than the first one. And you went back and back and back and back again to see it 5, 6 times, and it did better box office than the first one. And that's when Paramount decided, all right, this is going to be a series of feature motion pictures. And here we are now with another 14th Star Trek movie coming out. It came out last week. And so this phenomenon was created by all of you, the fans. And I want to thank especially you original fans that were there from the very beginning. But the other interesting thing about Star Trek fandom, the original fans proliferated, multiplied like tribbles. And you started bringing your children with them. Bringing their grandchildren in their arms to see Star Trek, to the conventions. And something interesting genetically seems to be happening with serious Star Trek fans. Because by the third generation, despite the fact that they're being carried by grandpa or grandma, they automatically go like this. And they have pointed ears. Something genetic is happening in this world. And so thank you all, Star Trek fans, and your progenies, and your tribbles, for this incredible gift that you've given us.
She's got a tribble.
She's got a tribble. There you are. Only one, though. So thank you all for that support. Now, before we open it up for Q&A, there's been this press-created controversy that I thought I'd better address. As you all know, I've been an advocate for equality for the LGBT community. Hawaii's been very good. You were at the spearhead of that movement to grant equality and marriage equality here way back in Hawaii. So thank you for that. But I've been an advocate since I came out in 2005, when I was 68 years old. I came out because something extraordinary happened in California. Both houses of our legislature, the people's representative, passed the marriage equality bill in 2005. Only one other state in the United States had marriage equality, and that was Massachusetts. And that came through the courts, the judicial court. The Supreme Court of the state of Massachusetts ruled that marriage equality is constitutional. For the first time in 2005, the legislature, the people's representative, passed the marriage equality bill. This was a landmark event. It went from the legislature to the governor's desk. And it was his signature that would have made it a law of the state. Our governor at that time happened to be a movie star. You know who he was. Arnold Schwarzenegger. He's not my friend. When Arnold Schwarzenegger ran for governor, he ran by saying, "I'm from Hollywood. I've worked with gays and lesbians. Some of my best friends are gays and lesbians." Very familiar phrase, you know. Some of it, during the civil rights movement, some of these white people were saying, some of my best friends are colored people, but I'm going to vote against them. Well, that's exactly what Arnold Schwarzenegger did. What?
I didn't know. I thought he passed. I called him.
You got moving fast.
I take back my clap. I'm sorry.
You thought Arnold Schwarzenegger was dead? Well, he is a star, but I'm a star. Because when the bill landed on his desk, he played to the right wing of his Republican party, and he vetoed it. And I was raging mad, but I was still positive. That night, Brad and I were watching the late night news, and we saw young people pouring out on Santa Monica Boulevard in Los Angeles, and they were venting their rage against Arnold Schwarzenegger. And we felt the same way. But there we were, at home, comfortable. And so we talked about it, and we decided it's about time that I did something about it. And that fall, I talked to the press for the first time as a gay man, and I blasted Arnold Schwarzenegger's veto. And I began my campaign for marriage equality. We talked at rallies, we talked at corporate meetings, we walked the corridors of Congress and lobbied the Congress people and the senators about them thinking about marriage equality. And last year, 2015, for the first time, the Supreme Court of the United States of America ruled that marriage equality is the rule of the land from border to border, from coast to coast. It was a major victory for us. And it was only last year. So I have my credentials as an advocate for LGBT equality. However, switch back to Star Trek. As you know, the Star Trek movies now are being made by a rebooted cast. We have younger people playing the original characters. And when I see John Cho up there, I can say, I'm young again. Sulu is young again. And this was last year. I got a phone call from John, and he said, George, I've got a little breaking news for you. In the next Star Trek movie, they're thinking of making Sulu gay. And I said, it's wonderful. I'm glad that they're dealing with the issue of LGBT equality in Star Trek for the first time. And I told him that back in the 60s, when I was still closeted, I had a very private conversation with Gene Roddenberry, and I said, we've been dealing with all of the controversial issues of America. The Civil Rights Movement, the Vietnam War, the Cold War. But there's another important issue that we haven't been addressing. Equality for LGBT. And he said, yes, I am supportive of that. And I'm very much aware of the fact that we've been silent on that. And I knew, why he was silent, because I was myself closeted at that time. But he said, I've got to keep Star Trek on the air to be able to talk about those issues. I've got to walk this very tightrope, because the networks are just waiting to get a reason to cancel us. So there are certain things I can talk about and disguise it as science fiction, but other subjects would have us canceled immediately. And I understood that, and so I respected him for that. Well, I told John Cho that, and I said, I'm glad that they're dealing with LGBT issues, but Gene Roddenberry created all of the original characters as heterosexual, as straight characters, because of the times. And now that we have this kind of freedom, a different changed society, what would really be good would be to create a new gay character that's fleshed out, that's got his own history, rather than taking Sulu, an established character, and changing him to gay. This is the 50th anniversary when the film is going to be coming out, Star Trek PR. On this 50th anniversary, we should pay tribute to Gene Roddenberry. And I said, John said, well, we're paying tribute to you. And I told him, no, it's not about me or Sue. It's about Gene Roddenberry, who created the show, who's making it possible for all of you, the current cast, to be working. Because most of them were born way after we were canceled. They didn't exist at the time we were doing Star Trek as a TV series. And I said, show your respect and honor Gene Roddenberry by creating a new gay character with his own history, rather than Gene Roddenberry's creation and suddenly revealing him as gay. And I said, you should talk to Justin Lin, who's going to be the director of this film. And shortly after that, I got a call from Justin Lin, the director. And I had a very long conversation with him. And again, saying essentially the same thing. Let's honor Gene Roddenberry on the 50th anniversary. That's where the honor and the tribute belongs. He listened very quietly. And I said, Sulu was created by Gene as a straight character, consciously created as a straight character. Let's honor Gene's creation. And Now you guys have that freedom. Be as bold as Gene Roddenberry. Be as creative as Gene Roddenberry. Be as imaginative as Gene Roddenberry. Create a new gay character who's fleshed out. And he listened very silently. And when we hung up, I thought he had heard me. But then, last month, I got a call from John again. And John said, I'm going to begin the promotional tour. I'm going to Sydney, Australia, where Star Trek Beyond is going to be aired for the first time, or screened for the first time. And I wanted to get your take on how you feel about Sulu being gay. I said, oh, he's still gay, is he? And he said, yeah, I play Sulu as a gay character. And I said, well, I had a long conversation with Justin, and he didn't say anything, he just listened. And so I thought he had heard me. But he said, no, the movie's ready to premiere now. And so I realized that he did not hear me. And then I got an email from Simon Pegg, who plays Scotty, and he was also the co-writer of the film. And he wrote, praising me to high heaven for my courage and my bravery and my dedication in advocating for LGBT equality, and congratulating me for the Supreme Court ruling last year. And I thought, oh, how nice. I get a fan letter from Simon Pegg. and so I just took it at that. But then I got another email from Simon explaining why they decided to make Sulu gay. And I said, well, when I talked to Justin, I challenged him to be creative and to be a Gene Roddenberry again, be bold. But I guess he didn't hear me. And so we agreed to disagree. And when you go see, those of you who have not seen Star Trek Beyond yet, you'll see that Sulu is now gay. It's a very brief scene, and if you blink, you might miss it. I won't spoil it for you by telling you what scene it is, but that means you'll have to pay attention to every scene. So that's the big controversy. The press took it as George Takei is unhappy with Sulu being gay, or George Takei, really extending it, George Takei is unhappy because we've introduced the idea of gayness, sexuality into Star Trek. No, those headlines are totally wrong. And so I hope, well, how many of you have already seen Star Trek Beyond? Oh, good, of course. How many of you are going to see it a second time? There you go. Don't tell them what that scene is. It's very good. And you say, oh, what did I miss out on? But that's the background behind that. And so having stimulated you, you're thinking enough, let's begin the conversation. They have a mic here, and do they have another mic someplace else? This is it. All right, if you'll line up here, and let's begin the fun part of this convention. Yes?
All right, so my name is Jack. I understand early popularity. And I've been noticing you reading IFL Science and Mike and various other articles that also reading or listening to TED Talks, Michio Kaku has been talking about how technology has been growing at an exponential rate. Technology has been growing at an exponential rate. Right now we've got 3D printers that are $300. Most people probably couldn't afford to go into the side of and we also have, the next room over, we have VR. And I've been reading a lot about LTBR drives and EM drives and all the weird technologies.
And cars that drive themselves.
Tesla, exactly. Do you feel that we might be reaching the Star Trek level of technology within the lifespan of some of the ways from?
We are living in a sci-fi world today. Because back in the 60s, we first aired in 1966. We had astounding technology on that. we walked around all over the ship with this little device attached to our hip. And wherever we were, whenever we wanted to, we'd rip it off, flip it open, and start talking. Back in 1966, that was jaw-dropping. No chords. How can they talk like that on the phone? Today, not only do we talk on it, we text on it, we buy things on it, sell things on it, see movies on it. So just that little device alone. But in so many ways, what was amazing, unthinkable science fiction is a common everyday thing. You know, the iPad, or we have a form of tricorder now. So we're advancing at an amazing rate. Our world today, that we take for granted, is a science fiction world from the vantage point of people in the 1960s. Here I am in 2016, and one Star Trek technology that I earnestly prayed for the early development of is the transporter. You just sparkle and pop out. 2 seconds later, you sparkle and pop into your destination. Yesterday, we left New York City in the dark of the morning, very early in the morning. We flew all day long for 11 hours and arrived here in Honolulu at 7 p.m. our party time. But everybody here told us, oh no, it's 1 o'clock. We have another day to go. So it would be so much more convenient if we could just sparkle and pop out.
Hi, George. I was just wondering what was going on with Allegiance. I followed the whole campaign of Allegiance for that street, and I know that Japanese and German people really don't know about
not
it.
Japanese and German.
Well,
Japanese American.
yeah, Japanese.
Because Japanese have been internment happened in Japan.
Right.
The Japanese ran theirs. But we are Americans.
Right.
Innocent Americans who were in prison simply because we happen to look like the people that fought the bomb Pearl Harbor. There were no charges. The most unconstitutional thing, you know? Because when you're arrested, you have the right to know why you're arrested. And then you have the right to challenge it in a court of law, a trial. In our case, since there were no charges, we didn't have any trial. And I remember that morning when 2 soldiers with bayonets on their rifles came marching up our driveway, stomped at the front porch, banged on the door, not knocking, but with their fists, and ordered us out of our home, and took us to a horse stable at Santa Anita Racetrack, where we were for a couple of months while the camps were being built. And then we were put on a train and transported to the swamps of Arkansas. There were 10 camps like that. It was the most unconstitutional thing that happened to us during the Second World War. So please say Japanese American internment camps, not Japanese internment camps, because those were run by Japan. Ours were run by America, by Washington, D.C.
I was just wondering, because I find it inspirational that you are talking about it, because like a lot of people don't know about it. I've studied a lot about World War II, and I was just wondering what was going on with Allegiance, if it was off Broadway now, if there's ever going to be a CD, because I really did enjoy the music.
Well, thank you very much for that, and I'm glad you're enjoying the music. I consider Allegiance my legacy project. I experienced that, and as you said, too few Americans know about this, and even fewer understand what that was all about. And I consider Allegiance a project, a drama that elevates, raises the awareness of that chapter of American history to all Americans. It's a beautiful musical, but what troubled me very much was the ushers would come backstage sometimes and tell us that during intermission, there were people in the lobby asking, is this story true? I can't believe something like that happened in the United States. There are people that are incredulous of that chapter of American history. So I consider it very important. And since I experienced it, I consider it my legacy project. I produced it, I invested in it. You know, and they say only dumb actors invest in their own productions. I'm a dumb actor. And the other thing that I'm grateful to Hawaii about, so many people from Hawaii invested in Legends, and they made Legends and we closed last February, but we are now crafting the road tour of Allegiance. We'll do the best tours, and definitely Honolulu. There's an observation to so many people of Honolulu that invested in our show. We're planning on doing it in Los Angeles, San Francisco, Seattle, and Honolulu. And if that's successful, then we might extend to Denver, Kansas City, Dallas, and other places in the Midwest. But thank you very much for asking about Allegiance.
Well, you just answered one of my questions. I was going to ask you if we could ever get to see Allegiance here for those of us who can't get to New York.
Well, now that you mentioned going to New York, springtime is a wonderful time. And I'm going to be opening in another play, a musical, called Pacific Overtures by Stephen Sondheim. So come to New York in the springtime. Come to see Pacific Overtures.
I'm elder sitting. I can't leave. He's 24/7.
I know what that's like, yes.
I'm paying an elder sitter while I'm here. Follow you on Facebook. Love your Facebook. Facebook?
Talk a little bit about, and talking about Allegiance. The reason, 10 minutes left, okay. The reason I started up on Facebook about 10 years ago is because we started to develop Allegiance. And I was very mindful of the fact that so few people, particularly east of the Rockies, know about the internment of Japanese Americans. And I knew that we have to raise the awareness. And what better way than social media to do that? But at that time, my base was made up essentially of you guys, sci-fi geeks and nerds. I had to grow that to be able to reach a bigger audience. And so I started an experiment. And by trial and error, I discovered that the funnies, the ticklers were what got the most likes and shares. And particularly, I found Grumpy Cat is very and that grew and grew, and my audience was larger. And so I introduced the idea of the internment of Japanese Americans. And then once enough people in my friends group knew about that, then I introduced the fact that, we have another triple joining us. Introduced the fact that we are developing a musical on the internment of Japanese Americans. And I got a lot of response from people saying, a musical on the internment, the imprisonment of Japanese Americans? Are you serious? Because they thought, musicals were all, happy stuff. And in the internment camps, we did make our own shows. I remember the teenagers about once a month were able to get permission to stage their dances after dinner in the mess hall. Tables and benches were cleared off, and they had their dances. And our barrack happened to be right across from the mess hall. And I remember my mother putting us to bed and hearing the big band sound with Tommy Dorsey and Benny Goodman wafting over from the mess hall, and the Andrews sisters. So we captured that joy. You know, you can't be depressed and glum all the time. And they became great production members. Also, baseball was very popular. My father was a block manager in the camp, and he organized a baseball team because he needed to keep people, you know, well, this was a way to build community, to get people working together as a team. And so we had a baseball production number. But we also talk about the anguish and the pain and the fracturing of the community as well as the family. And so I introduced that. And by the time we were ready to open, we had a huge allegiance following. But that didn't necessarily mean that the huge allegiance following would come see allegiance in New York. Like you had the stadium, you know. And so we opened, and the audience was there, but not enough to pay full fare. Many of them, we had to discount the tickets, and that sort of shortened our run. We were hoping for a much longer run. But with the road tour, I'm sure we're going to be able to bring this show to, especially to people who already know about it, people who have the memory of the enjoyment. And certainly here in Hawaii, there is that memory. And on the West Coast too, because those were the people that were put into the internment camps. So thank you for your interest in it. We will bring it to your front yard this time.
Not just on set, but also off set with the late, great Honolulu.
Almost everybody, another one of the gifts from us, Starford, are your co-workers became lifelong friends. And like when Brad and I got married, we had Walter Koenig, Chekhov, as our best man. And we asked Michelle Nichols to be our matron of honor. But Michelle said, I am not a matron. If Walter can be the best man, why can't I be the best lady? Of course you are. And we sent invitations because, you know, the two of them were part of the wedding party. We didn't want to single anybody out, so we sent invitations to all of our Star Trek cast members. They all RSVP, except one. You know who? Leonard was one of the first to respond. But alas, he had a meeting in New York on that day that we were getting married. So he couldn't come, and he sent a wonderful wedding present. Leonard became my political conversation leader in between shots on the set. Every morning we talked about the current events and the politics of the situation. And off the soundstage, off the studio line, we wound up supporting the same political candidate or the political issues. And when Leonard had a candidate that was considering running for an office, and he invited friends over to his home to listen to them, we went. And when we had someone like that, we invited Leonard to come over. And so he was a political soulmate. And his passing was much too early. I mean, he died at 83, but 5 minutes. Okay, I'll talk fast. Anyway, that's it. He was a good political friend and a good casting. We worked together well.
Thank you very much. I don't think just run up past. We have 5 minutes.
Besides the obvious choice of Sulu, what's your favorite character to play?
What's my favorite character on Star Trek?
No. Besides Sulu, like in any film, in anything that you ever played, Like for me, like my favorite role that you played was Hero's father and Hero.
That was a lot of fun. I enjoyed it. But my most satisfying roles have been in the theater. In 1974, I did a play in New York by Frank Chin, a play called A Year of the Dragon, about a father-son relationship story. And certainly, Allegiance that I did last year in New York was a very, very fulfilling opportunity. I enjoyed playing Kaito Nakamura very much on that show. It's good fun. Another form of Spock, Zachary Quinto, became a good friend. Although he was not supportive of my position. I mean, he really didn't know he obviously didn't know the whole story about the gay Sulu issue. And he said he doesn't understand George. He's always an advocate for LGBT people. And as a matter of fact, I urged them to create a new character. But I'll have to sit down with Zachary one of these days. Thank you.
Aloha, George.
Aloha.
First of all, it's an absolute honor to have you here. Just real quick, I know after Star Trek you did a lot of guest work in voiceover, everything from Disney's Mulan to Avatar: The Last Airbender to Adventure Time. Shout out to Ricardio, I'm just real quick. Could you tell how you got started in the world of voiceover?
Well, as a matter of fact, a voiceover was my very first gig while I was still an architecture student up at UC Berkeley. I was back, you're a Californian?
My dad is.
Oh, he's a veteran. I was back home for summer vacation home in Los Angeles from Berkeley, and I didn't have a summer job. And my father happened to be looking through the papers, and he said, here they are, there's an announcement here. They're casting for 8 Japanese voices for this Japanese science fiction movie called Rodan. They want to dub in English dialogue to this Japanese film. You're a hand, why don't you go out and try it out? I did. And I got cast. And it was wonderful, it was great fun. I mean, well, it wasn't all just great fun. I learned a lot. There were people like James Freeze and Key Luke that were working, and I learned from them about where to breathe before you approach a line. So I began my career with voiceovers. And I have 2 animated films coming out. One later this year called Kubo and the 2 Strings. And next year, how many of you have seen Blazing Saddles? Well, they're doing a take on Blazing Saddles with a movie titled Blazing Samurai. That's early next year, so watch out for that. So I'm doing a lot of voices. As a matter of fact, Monday we're going to, I wanted to extend my stay here in Hawaii, but they called me back and I have another voice gig on, as a matter of fact, Blazing Samurai. So I do that for one day. I'm working, they call you in about a half dozen times. And then the next day, I'm off to Las Vegas. You're in Las Vegas. I'm going to do a zero gravity flight there. And then next weekend, I'll be doing, what else? A Star Trek convention in Las Vegas.
Thank you so much. Safe travels.
Thank you.
Well, just gonna make you quick, it's gonna be really fast. No question here, I just want to thank you for everything that you've done and how you, in Star Trek, fandom-wise, science, standing up for the right for LGBTQ. Also, I'm studying for a Japanese language proficiency test, and I found out that another way of memorizing kanji pronunciation is that for bamboo is Takei, and you imagine a picture of how do you memorize it. So I imagine that you are jumping around in a bamboo forest and
live long